The United States of America is known to be one of the powerhouses in the world. Her currency, the US dollar, plays a significant role in the international monetary system. Thus, the weakening of the US dollar will no doubt have extensive impacts on the globe, especially on countries like Singapore. Singapore's economy is mainly export-oriented, and we take part mostly in international trade, which is the exchange of goods and services between different countries. On average, the USA takes up 11.4% of Singapore's total international trade, making it one of Singapore's largest trading partner. In addition, Singapore is also the first Asian country in the Asia Pacific to sign a free trade agreement with the United States. With this, it will be easy for Singapore businesses to invest in the American market. This shows how close these two countries are economically. The weakening dollar has been a long-standing issue since years ago. This has much to do with their consistent budget deficit and their long-standing debts. Despite this, the US continues their budget deficit policy by involving itself in conflicts and pumping in large amounts of funds and resources into them. To solve this, the Federal thus tried to solve their economic problem through the policy of quantitative easing. Quantitative easing is a form of monetary policy to stimulate the economy by increasing the supply of money in an economy, which simply put is to print money. The Federal thus gives the money to the central bank to purchase financial assets such as government and corporate bonds. These purchases gives the banks the reserves needed to create new money through the process of deposit multiplication and thus stimulate the economy. It is trying to inflate the economy out of liability by increasing bank liquidity and credit. The United States is a consumer-based economy with 70% of the economy based on consumerism. By allowing more credit, the government hopes to give consumers enough to spend. However, financial institutions, worried that their loans may go bad, are keeping the funds instead of loaning it to the public. Instead, they choose to buy government bonds and make a profit out of them. This causes a crowding out effect as the new money is not being circulated in the economy. The use of the policy of quantitative easing occurs at the expense of other countries as it threatens to destabilize the global financial system. Most countries in the world have their currencies tied and measured against the US dollar under the basket of currencies. With the continuous declining of the US dollar, it threatens the status of the dollar as the world's reserve currency. The weakening dollar also affects other exporting countries, making them more upset with the declining value of the dollar as the exports are less competitive compared to the USA's. Firstly, the weakening of the US dollar would imply a depreciation of the country's exchange rate. This makes US exports more price competitive. That is, the price of goods that the country exports now are lower in terms of foreign currency. Applying the law of demand, a rise in quantity of US exports sold will be seen. Assuming that the PED is more than 1, a fall in price will lead to a more than proportionate increase in quantity demanded. Thus, countries which purchase goods from the USA will import more as they are more price competitive. However, Singapore will lose in its export competitiveness as US goods are now more affordable. The exports of both the United States and Singapore are similar as both exports are mainly electronics. Other countries are more likely to buy such goods from the US instead of Singapore. Moreover, with the plunge of the US currency, people in the US find it less affordable to purchase imports from strong business partners like Singapore as their purchasing power has declined. This causes a decline in Singapore's net exports, which causes AD to fall, thus affecting real national income and our economic growth. This decline in trade may also lead to a fall in employment for this sector as the demand for exports have decreased. Some employees may thus lose their jobs due to this unfavorable situation. As of 2008, we can see that the unemployment rate of Singapore has increased. Another downside is the decrease in the amount of American investments. American businessmen often invest in Singapore firms, and they have contributed immensely to our economy. However, with the unfavorable economic condition the US is facing, US companies may reconsider their foreign investments, including Singapore. This will affect us in terms of loss in investments and economic growth. The weakening US dollar has influenced also Singapore's exchange rate considerably. The Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, stepped in to tackle the issue by appreciating the Singapore dollar against the weak US dollar. As a small and open economy, the MAS is very much concerned about inflation in Singapore as domestic prices are easily influenced. To curb this problem, the MAS thus continues its practice of a slow and gradual appreciation of the Singapore dollar. Though it will further hurt Singapore's export competitiveness, the issue of inflation is a more pressing matter for Singapore. Local businesses are affected by the depreciating dollar as well. Many companies in Singapore conduct business with US firms, and most of their payments are made in US dollars. The weakening dollar causes their profitability to decrease, thus affecting their profit margins negatively. Some firms are experiencing 20% less earnings due to this. Not only through direct trade with USA will affect Singapore, but also indirectly as both countries also share the same trading ties with a few countries. Let's take China for instance. Both Singapore and US trade with China. When the US imports lesser goods from China, China experiences a loss in trade revenue. In order to compensate for this loss, China may choose to import less from Singapore. Combined with the United States, both countries, China and USA, take up a majority of Singapore's total trade, and this will definitely hurt Singapore's economy badly. As such, Singapore will also be hurt indirectly from other countries and not just straight by US alone. However, instead of just allowing Singapore to be affected by this, there were other measures taken by the government to sustain our economy. Singapore is well known internationally as a medical hub for first-class healthcare services. Many renowned medical firms have established their headquarters here as well. In addition, more and more overseas patients choose to come to Singapore for medical treatment due to the advancements in our medical technology. This resulted in Singapore's economy making a strong comeback, with majority of our GDP growth contributed by the medical sector. Besides being a medical hub, Singapore also places much emphasis on our tourism sector. Like the medical sector, our robust tourism sector has helped boost Singapore's economic growth greatly. The opening of the 2 integrated resorts in year 2010 has contributed immensely to our country's economic growth. Our tourism has proven to be another of Singapore's leading sector for economic growth. Though Singapore has been affected by the weakening US dollar, we do not restrict ourselves to just one area of economic development. Diversifying our economy has proved to be successful in helping Singapore remain competitive even during hard times. Finally, being an important global economic powerhouse, it's unfavorable for the US dollar to continue weakening. Unless the Federal changes its policy of quantitative easing and do something more effective, we believe that the dollar will continue to weaken in the future. Thank you.